What's up guys, my name is Ace, and Modern Warfare 3 is finally here, at least for those of us that are taking a trip to New Zealand, or at least our consoles are currently in New Zealand. And in today's video, I wanted to outline a ton of things that I noticed that have changed between the beta build of the game and the launch of the game. Now, I do want to point out the gameplay in the background. It's against bots just because at this point, there's not too many people playing in North America. The connection experience is very inconsistent and not so good right now, and I want to get this video out quick, so I'm just playing against bots here. And also, keep in mind, we're not really going to be talking about content here because obviously the content is going to be quite different. Instead, we're looking at visual changes, quality of life changes, and most importantly, spawn changes. So let's dive right into this, and let's start it off with the visibility changes, because this is something that was one of the bigger complaints throughout the beta. And the first part of this was in the beta, it felt like there was always a haziness on all of the maps in the game, and things just felt really washed out. There was also a lack of saturation because of this hazy feel. So let's have a look at some direct comparisons between beta and launch. Keeping in mind, I have all of the exact same settings, all the same color settings, everything like that. Nothing has changed there. So this is all in-game changes. And as we can see throughout many of these images, they significantly cut down on that haziness and they really boosted saturation. In fact, they maybe almost took saturation a little too far, but I'd rather it be oversaturated than undersaturated. And I do think this looks noticeably better now at launch compared to the beta, at least on most of the maps. I will say on Skid Row, for instance, in this one situation, it's still pretty hazy. They haven't really changed much there. It looks pretty much the same as the beta. And it was a similar story on Rust. The lighting changed a little bit. Looks like it got a little brighter, but there is still a little bit of a haze there. So I'd say these two maps haven't changed as much as the other maps. But in general, I have noticed this looks much better now at launch compared to the beta. As for the next part of visibility that was a common complaint throughout the beta, this was the visibility of the teammate dots above their head as well as the enemy diamonds above their head. Oftentimes, especially in a brighter background, these would just blend in. And let's just look at side by side here. With that teammate name tag and dot, you can see in the beta, this was far more faded and it would often blend into the background. Whereas at launch, not only did they increase the size of the dot and the name tag, they also added a dark stroke around it. So this is going to make it pop regardless of the situation. If you have a super bright background, it's not going to blend in like it would in the beta. So that's a huge improvement. And we saw the exact same story with the enemy name tags and diamonds. They did the same thing. They increased the size of the text as well as the diamond itself, and they added that stroke to make it pop a whole lot more. So for me at least, this is a massive improvement from the beta and completely resolves that issue that I had. Now let's talk about a fairly minor thing, but another thing that we asked for, and they provided it to us. This is with that little notification that pops up on the top right. When you call in a UAV or you get like a 5 or 10 kill streak, any multiple of 5, your name will appear on the top right, and throughout all of Modern Warfare 2, it would look like it did in the beta, just sort of a plain text thing. Whereas now, your calling card will also appear up there. And that's great. This is something we've been asking for quite some time, and they just never changed it with Modern Warfare 2. It's great to see Sledgehammer's listening. Even though it is a very minor thing, little things like this can go a long way. Next, let's talk about that toggle tactical UI element. This was another complaint throughout the beta that I had, at least, where every time you aim down sight, it would pop up saying toggle tactical right in the middle of the screen, just under your sight line. And that was just way too cluttered and unnecessary. At launch, what they've done here is they've just moved this down to the bottom right, just below your gun icon. And that's an excellent place for this. It gets it out of the way. And I'm really happy to see this one as well. As for the next thing, this is something I've been asking for throughout the entire life cycle of Modern Warfare 2 because it was in the beta for Modern Warfare 2 and then they removed it. It wasn't in the beta for Modern Warfare 3, but it is here at launch. This is the kill counter at the bottom of your screen. So every time you get a kill, it tells you what your streak is. So you don't have to pay attention to that top right indicator every 5 kills to see what kind of streak you're on. You can see it for every kill. I love that that's there. Again, this is one of those relatively minor things that really add up. When you keep adding these little quality of life changes up, it really goes a long way, and I'm very happy to see this return. Next, they brought a brand new quality of life feature with the launch of Modern Warfare 3 that wasn't available in the beta, and this is in the middle of the game. If you pull up your scoreboard, you can tab over to the stats section, and it will show you your current stats in that match. And they're quite detailed as well. You can see your total match stats like kill-death ratio, you can see your kills and your deaths, although unfortunately still you can't see your deaths on the regular scoreboard and you can't see other people's deaths, which would be nice to see. But you can also see how many headshots you've got, your current kill streak, the amount of total damage you've dealt, the amount of total damage you've received, your score per minute, and there's also weapon stats for the weapons that you've been using. And this is an excellent addition to the game as well. I'm really happy that they brought this. Then another thing that wasn't in the beta, but we now have available at launch, we have little medals or accolades, I guess, that pop up as you get certain types of kills. So if you get double kills or headshots or long shots, for instance, you'll have that little medal pop up on the top center of your screen. And I like the addition of those. One thing I will say about these, I think the audio is a little bit loud on them. I think they could tone that back just a bit because it actually gets a bit annoying if that keeps popping up over and over again. But I am personally glad they brought that feature in. And now let's talk about something relating to movement. And this is something I briefly covered in my best settings video yesterday. But one of the complaints from controller players throughout the beta is there was a bit of a pre-slide delay. So when you hit the slide button, you kind of had to hold it for a brief period of time, but not too long, because if you held it for too long, you'd end up diving. And you had to get that sweet spot. And what that meant is you didn't have that instant reaction the moment you hit the slide button. Well, at launch, what they've done here is they've just added a new setting that allows you to tap to slide, which disables diving entirely, and this eliminates that pre-slide delay. In saying this, another thing I've noticed is even if you don't activate that and you just keep it on the default setting, the same setting we had in the beta, it does seem like they've cut down on that pre-slide delay anyway. So I think it requires a little bit less time to determine whether or not you've tapped or if you're continuing to hold that for a dive. And at least based on feel, it really seems to have cut down that pre-slide delay compared to the beta. And again, that's another big improvement because that was one of the bigger complaints throughout the beta. After that, let's go through a bunch of bugs and issues that were in the beta that Sledgehammer has just simply resolved. The first one is footstep volume levels for teammates versus enemies. These are now different as they should be, so you should be able to determine whether it's a teammate or an enemy if you're really paying attention to that footstep audio. Next, they fixed the issue with the Guardian SC causing the heads-up display to disappear sometimes. They also fixed the issue where your loadout screen would pop up randomly in the middle of the game. Then with the counter UAV, a lot of the times when you tried to call it in throughout the beta, it wouldn't actually work and it would say not enough space to call in. That has been fixed, so you can call those in at any time. They also fixed the missing announcer voice lines for enemy UAV activation. And then finally, from their Trello board, they have fixed the grenade voice line that would repeat itself in the beta with a certain character. Now, on top of this, I just wanted to point out Sledgehammer has been updating their Trello already, and they've also added a bunch of known issues that have popped up immediately at launch that people have been noticing, and these should get taken care of hopefully quickly. The first one is sometimes your field of view can just be extremely high when you spawn in. Then on Terminal Search and Destroy on the A bomb site inside the plane, you can actually plant that from outside the plane currently. That's going to end up getting fixed at some point, hopefully soon. Then the multiplayer beta rewards haven't been granted to some players. That's something they are aware of and will be working on. And then finally, for things that they've mentioned here that they're aware of is in free-for-all, it's currently allowing parties of multiple players to join free-for-all. And that obviously shouldn't be allowed for free-for-all. Now after that, they actually just posted their patch notes now as I was recording this, and there were a ton of weapon balancing adjustments. Now I'm not going to go into every detail here because we're literally looking at beta till launch, but just some of the highlights here. They have nerfed the Striker again, as well as the MCW. Those are the key ones to take away from this. If I were to cover every one of these details, this would be like a half-hour long video, and I don't think you really need to see all of the details since we didn't even have all of the exact stats before anyway. We were basically just relying on feel. So if you do want to check those patch notes out, of course, I will leave them linked down below. Gotta say, props for the exact values in the patch notes. That's excellent to see. Additionally, another thing that was in the patch notes that I didn't pick up on myself is they decreased the aim down sight time penalty when jumping by 20%. So you still will have a slightly slower aim down sight time if you're in the middle of a jump shot, but it's not going to be as bad as it was in the beta. And with that, we can move into the final section, and the section I'm most excited about. This is spawns. This was by far my biggest gameplay issue in the beta. The spawns were awful in the beta, like really, really bad. And I did make an entire feedback video talking about all of the problems with the spawns, what exactly was going wrong, and what I'd like to see changed. And I'm very happy to report, based on my testing so far, the spawns are totally different at launch. And in general, at least, based on my testing in TDM and Domination, they are significantly better. And I was actually blown away at how much this has changed. I fully expected they were going to make some adjustments to spawn since it was one of the biggest complaints, but I didn't expect them to essentially overhaul the spawn system, and that's what they've done here. Now, I do want to be clear with this. I obviously haven't tested every game mode on every map, and I obviously don't have a ton of playtime at this point, so I'm sure certain spawn issues will arise in certain situations with certain game modes, certain maps. In fact, we've already seen a bunch of clips coming out with Hardpoint on Quarry. This is totally broken right now. The spawns are a huge mess on that mode and map specifically. And honestly, this is no surprise considering they completely overhauled things from the beta till launch. Obviously, they haven't had a ton of time to be testing this new spawn system, so I'm sure they're going to have to collect some data and make some tweaks here or there. So I'm in no way saying the spawns are now flawless in Modern Warfare 3, but the general logic and structure to these spawns is significantly better already compared to the beta. What I've noticed with the spawn system at launch compared to the beta is spawns tend to be a lot stickier. They can handle a lot more pressure before completely flipping out to the other side of the map. In the beta, spawns were flipping all over the place, even when you barely put any pressure on them, and that was just creating a lot of like randomness. Whereas now, there's going to be a lot more structure to the spawns. You can push fairly close to their spawn before you force a flip out. And just one example here is on High Rise and Domination, for instance, one single player can push right into their spawn building without completely flipping them to the other side of the map. It'll still push their spawn around within their side of the map to try to stay away from you a little bit. So if you push on the right side really hard, their spawn will push more to the left or vice versa. But that one single player is no longer going to force a crazy spawn flip or cause somebody to spawn like literally right in the middle of the map. Additionally, in Domination, there now appears to be a very strong connection to a team's spawn and the flags that they hold. It looks like it's going to be far more rare to see situations where if my team only holds the A flag in Domination and we've got the enemy team also spawning at the A flag. That happened a lot throughout the beta, and that was a complete mess. Domination was not playing too well in the beta. I can tell already, at least the general logic behind the spawns is so much better compared to the beta now. High Rise as well, you don't have those like underground spawns in Domination kind of pushed up toward the middle of the map. Now you're going to spawn in the proper spawns toward the end of the map above ground, and that's excellent to see. And overall, I'm just blown away with how much of an adjustment they made here. Like I said, I expected some tweaks here or there, but I honestly didn't think they would take it far enough. If anything, they may have taken it a little too far, and that's good. I would rather see them take it a bit too far and then dial things back a little bit. Like maybe make them a bit too sticky at first, and then adjust back from there to ensure that spawn trapping doesn't get too crazy. You gotta be able to control that to some degree. I'd rather they go that route than start off with random chaos and just make it slightly less random and chaotic, update after update. And with that, that is going to wrap it up for today's video on all of the main things that I've noticed that have changed from beta till launch. And I've got to say, I realize right now is obviously the honeymoon phase. I'm sure we're going to find new issues that pop up over time. And I'm not going to act like the game is absolutely flawless at this point. However, when I try to account for that, if you take a step back and just look at everything they've changed from beta till launch, I've got to say, for me at least, this is the most impressive amount of changes that we've seen between a beta and a launch of a Call of Duty game. They addressed almost every single piece of gameplay-related feedback that I had in the beta. Now, obviously, things like matchmaking and disbanding lobbies and their horrible UI, none of that is likely to change, and that's unfortunate. I don't think Sledgehammer really has any say when it comes to those things, though, and those elements obviously still suck. But if we just focus on the things that Sledgehammer has direct control over, they have done a very impressive job, especially in the short period of time between beta and launch, to fix nearly all of the community's gameplay-related complaints. And this is just so refreshing after coming off an Infinity Ward Call of Duty game where, if you look at their beta till launch, it seems like they picked a few of the minor community complaints and fixed those, and they left everything else in the game for the entire life cycle of the game. So, massive props to Sledgehammer here. I am very impressed with these changes so far, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about all of the changes they've made from the beta till the launch of the game? And also, are there any other big changes that you've noticed that I didn't pick up on in this video? If you found any, please let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.